Japan is an amazing country to visit, but with so many incredible cities and unique accommodations, choosing the right hotel can sometimes feel a little, well, overwhelming. From traditional Japanese-style inns to futuristic capsule hotels and everything in between, where do you even start? In this video, I'm going to break down everything you need to know to find the perfect place to stay in Japan, no matter your budget or travel style. I'll cover key considerations like location, amenities, and even some pro-level tips you might not have thought of. All right. Let's go. What you should know about hotels in Japan is that hotel rooms in Japan are typically small, they're typically clean, but they're also typically tired. What do I mean by that? I mean that like many hotels in Japan are old. Like if you're in a 40-year-old hotel, it might be like well worn. You know, at 40 years, they'll be trying to maintain it, but there are just many hotels in Japan where you go in there and you're like, oh, the golden era of this hotel has definitely passed. I mean, not this one, the ANA Intercontinental, with a great view of Tokyo Tower out the window. Oh, and my traveling panda Topher, who was just helping me review this hotel room, has come to join me for this section. So they've just done a full remodel, and so it's nice and fresh, but this is something you have to be aware of when you're booking hotels in Japan. Now, the best hotels to stay in Japan are generally going to be the ones that are close to train stations or on top of train stations, because being close to the train and being easy to get around is paramount when you're visiting this country. A rule of thumb I would say about like how close do you need to be to a train station? Ideally less than 5 minutes. If you're 10 minutes away from a train or subway station, then you're right on the border of whether I consider that close enough or not. That's actually my biggest issue with this hotel, the ANA Intercontinental. It's about a 10-minute walk to the subway stations from here, and so I found myself most of the time taking taxis to get around because it was just such a long walk to the subway. Now, of course, if you're looking to save some money, the further away you get from a train station, generally the cheaper the hotels get, because in Japan, everybody wants to be as close to a train station as possible. Not just for the trains, but generally near train stations is also where you'll find food, restaurants, and shopping, just generally the stuff that you want to do. If you're at a hotel that like provides a shuttle to the nearest train station, beware. Now, if you're coming to Japan during a popular season like cherry blossoms, you will want to book well in advance. What do I mean by well in advance? I mean like 3 to 6 months in advance, particularly if you're coming to some place like Tokyo, particularly if you want to stay with some of the big Western chains, the Marriotts, the Hyatts, the Hiltons of the world. Lots of people are competing for those same rooms and are also booking out early. Now, if you want to save a little bit of money, don't book with the big Western chains, book with the local Japanese chains. Why is that? Well, I feel like the Western chains can be, 25 to 50% more than many of their local counterparts. Some local chains you might want to look at is the Nikko hotels, the ANA hotels, JR hotels, JAL, Japan Airlines hotels, and one of our new recent favorites, the Hoshino Resorts hotels. We recently stayed in Atami at the Hoshino Resorts Resonari Hotel. It was totally themed for kids. It had a ball pit in it. Our daughter, the Kira's Princess, absolutely loved that hotel. If you want to be on the real budget side of things, take a look at Toyoko Inn. They call this a business hotel in Japan, and it's not the same thing as like an American business hotel that we consider a Marriott. Japanese business hotels are like just meant for sleeping, just meant for one night, and so the rooms are going to be absolutely tiny, the kind of room where like you open the door and it probably hits the bed, and there's probably no chair, and you sit on the bed to get to the desk, but the room prices are going to be dirt cheap. But the hotel is still going to be absolutely clean and functional. Now, I'd say this day and age, most hotels in Japan are Western style hotels. What does that mean? It means that you sleep on a mattress on kind of an elevated bed. But if you want the true Japanese experience, then you'll want to stay in a ryokan or a traditional Japanese style inn. I'm going to talk more about those when I get to the section on hot springs, because generally traditional Japanese style inns come with hot springs, though that's not always the case, but I feel like the ones that are still successful today and do well are traditional Japanese style inns that are in onsen or hot spring towns. You won't find a lot of traditional Japanese style inns in central Tokyo. Now, if you really want to save some money, you can definitely get creative in your hotel type. Yes, there are the capsule hotels that are world famous. These things that you basically just get like a small bunk or almost like coffin that you sleep in. There are manga cafes, like places that are coffee shops. You can read comic books. You can like sleep in a chair in a cafe overnight. There are love hotels that you can rent by the hour. So you can definitely save if you're willing to be a little creative. Oh, of course there's hostels too. There's even hostels where maybe you can like do some work for your room if you don't have any money at all. Now, when you're looking at Japanese hotels and rooms, beware, there are lots of different plans and room types. If you stay at a Holiday Inn, it's all just kind of one room in the whole hotel, but not in Japanese hotels. They will have many different kinds of rooms, from small to slightly less small. Do also beware that the occupancy of many Japanese hotel rooms is 2. And so if you've got more than 2 people, definitely make sure when you're searching that you bump that up so you're actually getting the rooms that could hold 3 or more people. Japanese hotels can be pretty big sticklers about it. Like if they see you showing up with 3 people and you've only booked a room for 2 people, they might not let you check in or they might charge you more. So make sure you do that ahead of time. Also do beware that there are many Japanese hotels that still have smoking rooms. So it's not a given that all rooms are non-smoking, so do make sure if you don't like to be in a smoky room that you've booked a non-smoking one. And just a kind of a cool note about Japanese hotels, most of them will accept Amazon or online shopping packages for you. So if there's some things you really want to buy when you're in Japan and you can't make it to the shop, you can't make it to Yodobashi to get those electronics, you can order them on Amazon, have them delivered to your hotel with your name and your room number on it, or even if you don't have a room, just your name on it, and they will get it up to you in your room or hold it down at the front desk and you can go and pick it up. I mean, it's probably worthwhile for you to check with the hotel just to make sure and let them know that you're expecting some packages, but every Japanese hotel that I've ever stayed at was happy to accept packages for me. Hot springs, really popular thing to do while you're in Japan is go and bathe in the water that's been heated by all the volcanic activity on this island of a country. Now, the thing you need to know about the hot springs in Japan is they are generally called onsens here. That's the Japanese word for a hot spring. And you can enjoy the hot springs in a couple different varieties. Probably the highest and nicest experience is if you're going to an onsen hotel. These are usually traditional Japanese style hotels where they will have hot spring baths for the hotel guests. Sometimes you can, if you're not a hotel guest, pay to go in during the daytime, a little extra. But the good thing about being a hotel guest is then maybe at nighttime where they don't let the public in, then you have those baths all to yourselves. Hot spring baths in Japan are generally gender separate and fully nude. You're nude so that when you go in, you don't make the water dirty from your swimsuit or clothes or things like that, which means that you need to take a shower and clean yourself off before you go and relax in the hot spring. If you're not into that, you absolutely can get hotels that do have private hot spring baths. We stayed at the Marriott in Mount Fuji. It had a private hot spring bath in the room. We also stayed at another hot spring hotel that had private hot springs outside of the hotel room. So there are options. Just know that it's a much smaller subset that have the private hot spring baths than the typical setup, which is communal hot spring baths, gender separate, fully nude. Now, speaking of onsens, people always ask me what onsens I recommend. And so to answer that question, I've put a list together of my 7 favorite onsen hotels that I've personally stayed at. You'll find that link in the description below that I made as a plan-in guide. From there, you can also watch my full review videos on each of those hotels and even book from there too. Plan-in also offers some really sweet insider discounts to hotels, up to 40% off on some of them, but they can only display those prices to logged-in users, so do sign up for a free account so you can see the discounts and the guide. And if you do happen to book with any of those hotels via the link, I may earn a small commission, which really helps to support the channel. Now, if you don't want to spring for staying in an onsen hotel, there are many public baths that are around, and so these are like bathhouses that pipe the hot spring water in. They're not hotels, they're just places for people to come and take a bath. They'll often be relatively inexpensive, 300 yen, 500 yen. You may have to bring a towel, you may have to rent a towel, but that's an option to do it on the cheap. And if you want to do it even cheaper, and by that I mean free, something you will also find in a lot of hot spring towns and a lot of hot spring areas are foot baths, places that you can just soak your feet in the hot spring water. These are also typically free. You'll want to bring a towel if you're enjoying those, although at some places they'll even sell you towels for a couple hundred yen. And if you've never dipped your feet in hot spring water, it is absolutely a great way to relax the feet in the middle of a long day of walking. All right, fellow explorers, the last thing to know is that we've got even more videos to help you with your Japan trip. If you're coming to Tokyo, you might want to check out my Tokyo travel guide right here, or you might want to dive into our whole Japan series playlist, over 150 videos right here from all the different regions that I talked about earlier. As usual, I won't say goodbye because I'll see you in the next video.